On the continent of Gaia, years ago, monsters mysteriously started vanishing. Initially, he believed they were simply gone, but his inquiries revealed a different truth. The missing monsters had shifted to another dimension, a feat many wizards coveted back then. Now, understanding the cause of this anomaly aided his studies, though its significance had faded. The wizard finalized his project, declaring the coordinates perfectly aligned and the magical link flawless. With the magic circle complete, he reached upward, grateful for access to the vast dungeon known as the Great Labyrinth. Harnessing this place's magical energy, crossing dimensions would be effortless. He boldly announced his departure. Stepping through the portal, he was uncertain of his destination, but resolute in chasing his dream. As he soared, he sensed shifts in airflow and temperature, a sign of triumph. Yet, he halted mid-air, questioning if the dungeon itself had traversed dimensions. Instead, the portal opened elsewhere, in a room where a puzzled young man stared at the glowing circle, wondering what it was. The following day, in a bustling city, a group of friends strolled along the street. A girl turned to her companion, asking if their janapa was the coolest. Her friend grinned, declaring him absolutely unmatched. Nearby, Kong Jin Hyuk, a D-rank hunter, watched them, thinking how admirable it was to pursue something with such zeal. Heck muttered that such extravagance was beyond him. He nudged his friend, asking why he looked so dazed. His friend urged they pick up the pace, noting they weren't even halfway to their destination. Heck nodded, saying he was right behind. After finishing their task, they climbed into a car. The guy praised Heck, calling him a solid kid, and suggested they take a break. But he paused, asking if Heck was chilly in this weather. Heck scoffed, reminding him he was a hunter. Did he forget hunters could endure extreme heat and cold? The guy raised an eyebrow, asking if that applied to D-ranks too. Heck smirked, saying luckily it did, which kept his heating costs down. The guy admitted he was jealous, but questioned why a hunter like Heck took part-time gigs at such places. Heck paused, then admitted he was broke. The guy sighed, wishing the guild's iron grip would ease up. Heck grumbled that those guild folks were insufferable, and things had only worsened lately. It was barely livable. The guy pressed him, asking why things were so bad and what was up with the guilds. Heck explained that a month ago, a deranged killer had gone on a rampage, obsessed with hunting down and eliminating hunters from major guilds. The guy questioned if Heck meant the guilds were lashing out at others because they couldn't catch the killer. Heck nodded bluntly, confirming it was exactly that. The guy shook his head, saying the more he heard, the more unhinged it all seemed. Heck agreed, sharing the same thought. But then, a noise interrupted them. The guy froze, asking what that was. Had the concert begun? Heck scanned the area and said it sounded like a scream. He bolted toward the sound. The guy, panicked, shouted after him, asking where he was going. Heck sprinted toward the cry, certain it was a plea for help. It could be terrorism or monsters, one or the other. If it was a monster, it had to be taken down. Just then, people poured out of a building, yelling for help. The crowd was terrified, too frightened to resist, knowing they'd be slaughtered if they tried. Heck, thrilled by the opportunity, saw this as his moment. He swiftly accessed his inventory. With a flash of his skills, he drew a magic bat from his inventory. His friend caught up, out of breath, and asked if he could assist. He'd been training hard lately and could be of use. Heck explained that monsters emitted a unique wavelength, rendering them immune to attacks from ordinary people and standard weapons. Only hunters like him, endowed with specific traits, could counter that wavelength. He wanted a guy to stay back and not do anything reckless. The guy nodded, taken aback, and said he got it. He urged Heck to be cautious around the monsters. Heck carefully navigated through the panicked crowd toward the creatures, determined to finish the hunt before the big guild's hunters arrived. He charged forward, muttering that even taking down the smallest monster would cover his expenses for a year. Suddenly, a guild hunter appeared beside him, ordering him to step aside. The hunter halted Heck with a sharp gesture, flinging him back to keep him out of the way. Heck, frustrated, realized the guild had already shown up. The Titan Guild controlled this area. The hunter, and Du Yun, deputy leader of the Titan Guild, told Heck to forget it and scram. Heck grumbled that they'd take all the rewards, as always, despite him being there first. Yun smirked, asking what that mattered. This was their territory. Heck snapped, demanding to know where that rule was written. Yun shrugged, admitting it had no legal weight, but neither did Heck's claim. Furious, Hyuk shouted, asking what kind of nonsense that was. Yun countered, pointing out that Hyuk claimed he arrived first. But where was the law saying the first gets ownership? Had the association ever set such a precedent? Heck shot back, calling Yun's logic insane. Refusing to tolerate such disrespect, Heck lunged at Yun, yelling for them to show some humility. Yun, a rank above, effortlessly dodged and struck Heck with a swift palm. Glaring down, Yun snarled that a lowlife like Heck dared challenge him. He warned that crossing him again would cost Heck his life. Heck realized Yun outclassed him in speed and strength. Gripping his bat, he thought bitterly that a D-rank hunter stood no chance against a big guild's elite. He seethed at the big guild's dominance, but as a powerless D-rank, all he could do was take another part-time job to make ends meet. After his shift, his mind swirled with resentment. Part of him wished that Psycho Killer would wipe out the Titan Guild, but what hit harder was his own weakness, a crushing sense of defeat. His cheek still throbbed as he collapsed face first onto the sofa. Suddenly, he whipped around at an odd noise. A portal flickered open right before him. Heck steadied himself and peered into the portal, spotting something inside. Abruptly, a goblin's image materialized before him. Instinctively, Heck recoiled from the portal in panic. Recognizing goblins, he thought he needed to grab his weapon fast. But after a few minutes of watching, he realized the creatures couldn't see him. Curious, he tested it by reaching through the portal, finding no resistance as his hand passed through. After some thought, he concluded there was a dungeon in his attic. Heck sank onto the couch, sipping a soda, convinced his theory was right. This was a dungeon, a phenomenon only theorized until now. He sighed, troubled by its location in his room. Should he report it to the association or ignore it? Dungeons had been speculated about, but never confirmed. If he alerted the association, they'd swarm his place for investigation, likely kicking him out of his own home. Heck mulled it over and made up his mind. He'd rather keep this secret for himself than hand it over to the blasted association. Heck paused, wondering if the monsters could cross into his room. He needed to test this first. Standing before the portal, he muttered that his skills could handle maybe 2 or 3 goblins at most. If a horde of monsters poured through, he'd be done for. Stepping through the portal, a system message announced he'd entered a dungeon, the first floor of the Goblin Labyrinth. Heck ventured in, marveling that this was a genuine dungeon, no doubt about it. Suddenly, a goblin swung its weapon at him from behind, but Heck dove back through the portal to escape. He paused, catching his breath, as the goblin slashed futilely at the portal's edge. Heck reasoned that if no one else could enter, there was nothing to fear. Fearlessly swinging his bat, he crossed back through and smashed it into the goblin's skull. The goblin staggered, flung back several meters. Heck pressed the attack, not letting up. The goblin looked pitiful, but Heck snapped that it shouldn't glare. He was desperate too. With a fierce strike, he shattered the goblin's head into fragments without a second thought. Now, as a hunter, he faced a monster solo for the first time. Just one, but a victory he could share. His level, stagnant for 3 years, finally ticked up. At best, he'd taken down a single goblin. This victory drove home the harsh reality of the big guild's chokehold on hunters. Those scum had no shame. Heck looked at the broken goblin and said that if you think about it, the bodies of these monsters could be sold for decent money. And the goblin's body is worth at least 3 million won. And he became very curious. How much will he get? Arriving in the city, he came to the building where all the people were selling. The manager asked him what he had come to sell. Heck immediately replied that he had come to give away 1 goblin, and he moved it straight from the inventory to the buyer. The manager began examining the body and said he thought the guy had some hunting experience. Heck didn't hide it and said that was correct. The manager told the guy that if he catches like that, The value of the product is being conveyed. Next time, aim for the vital spots. And for such a body, he could not pay more than 3.2 million won. Hyuk immediately replied that he would bid for that price. And then the manager agreed and told the guy to tell them where he caught this monster. He would confirm and make the payment. Heck was very confused and asked, "Is it that important?" The manager replied that it was established by law, so nothing could be done about it. Heck was thinking at this moment, what should he do? Should he say that it was the one who escaped from the Titan Guild Zone last time? The manager asked the guy why he was so worried. Even if he went somewhere else, he wouldn't get more. But suddenly someone from a crowd asked about someone, and Heck immediately turned around to look. People at this time were asking, weren't they from the Black Dragon Guild? Who were they going to hit this time? The boy pointed at Heck and said he thought it was him. The manager said at that moment that they had found it. Heck got worried and asked what happened. The gang leader approached the guy and asked, "Is it him?" Heck didn't understand and asked in response, "What is he?" The gang leader immediately grabbed him by the clothes and asked if he was the one who intercepted the monster from their zone. And then the manager said that this was not the one they were looking for. The guys grumbled and asked, then who? And they saw a blonde guy chatting in the corner. The gang leader immediately walked up to the boy and, without saying a word, sent his fist straight into the boy's jaw. They stopped at this point and started beating everyone in the room. The blonde's friend asked them what they were doing. The hunter replied that the man was hunting on their guild's territory without permission. If he didn't intend to compensate for that, he shouldn't do anything. The head of the hunters stopped his man and asked the blonde why he was wandering around their territory. Did he want to lose his life? The blonde was badly beaten and didn't understand what they were talking about. The leader immediately grabbed his hair and said, did he know that in their days he could end up at the mercy of a psycho killer? And it would be better for them to do a little research together. Will such a decision be acceptable to the guy? But the blonde insulted them and immediately went out from the blow of the head of the hunters. The manager told them to just take the money and leave quietly. They are making ridiculous accusations. He told the guy that if he didn't want to end up like that, he shouldn't even go near the place occupied by the guild. Heck asked him how he knew about this guild. The manager asked how. All guilds of a certain scale are connected to this server. Heck asked if the man knew and confessed. The manager replied that if he was caught lying about the location, his hunting license would be confiscated for life and he would go to jail, so there was nothing he could do about it. Heck knew immediately that he would almost get into more trouble if he lied. Heck took his goblin and started to leave. The manager stopped him and asked him what he wouldn't sell and just leave. The guy replied that everything was right. He changed his mind. After all, he could have been dragged away with beatings too. You have to try not to be noticed by such guys. But they'll still see. He'll become stronger in this dungeon, and it will all end with envy towards him. Late at night, sitting at home, he decided that he would enter the dungeon to become stronger. And of course, he prepares. Heck said he thought he had taken care of everything that needed to be taken care of. This should be taken too. The item is called Hearthstone, and it costs 1 million, but when else to use it if not now? He said he was fooled by an advertising campaign that said he could find out the location of monsters anytime, anywhere. The search radar was purchased for 400,000 backgrounds. In fact, it is garbage that can only detect at a distance of 50 meters in all directions. And yet for him, going into the dungeon alone, it is like an extra life. Heck immediately turned it on and said it seemed to be working. One catch in 1 hour. Maybe it was a goblin? Entering the dungeon, Heck began to knock out all the goblins and said that first one. The system immediately notified him that the level had been increased to 5. The boy judged that, as the name of the Goblin Labyrinth suggests, all the monsters here are goblins. Although it is quite monotonous for him, a low-ranking hunter, it is an optimal hunting place. Having finished destroying the goblins, Heck sat down for a while to rest and decided to check how much he had leveled up. He immediately opened his stats window. Heck said his level had increased a little, but his other abilities were still bad. Heck resigned himself and said that he did have a dungeon after all. From now on, he would be able to gradually improve his skills. We need to take care of these guys and start hunting again. He immediately opened his inventory and closed it. But suddenly the system said he had one free spot, and not enough space. Heck said he had only one spot left. If it was the last one, he'd better catch a big one. Heck opened his compass and saw that there was one going to 9 o'clock, and decided to catch one expensive goblin. The guy looked around and decided that if he waited behind the wall and launched an unexpected attack, everything would be quite easy. Heck knew that a good position was 5 meters ahead, and suddenly the goblin's head came out and the guy attacked with the bat. His helmet flew into the air and he thought he heard a strange sound. Looking closer, he noticed that it was not a goblin. It looked like a human. Heck approached the man and asked if he was okay, but the stranger started screaming at the top of his voice in an unknown language. The guy asked him if he was a foreigner. Heck knew this man was speaking a strange language. What country was he from? He looked angry, so he should apologize first. Heck bowed and apologized, saying that he had no idea there were other people there. The stranger reached into his pocket and threw an object into the boy's hands. Heck asked, "What is it?" He examined the object and realized that it was a necklace. He wondered why he needed it and decided to put it on his neck. The necklace suddenly started to sparkle, and the stranger asked the guy if he understood now, and he started to insult him. Heck replied that he knew the man was angry, but not much. The stranger could not stop and grumbled. The guy apologized again. The stranger told the guy to go fuck himself. It was the first time he had seen such a guy in his 132 years of dwarven life. Heck, hearing that he was a dwarf, was surprised and thought, weren't they a race known as blacksmiths? To be honest, it's hard to believe, but the creature in front of him looks exactly like he imagined. And these things were dropped by the gnome. He picked them up from the ground by the dog, and the system said that he took a rare item. Heck immediately understood that it was a rare item. The dwarf asked the boy what he was doing. Let him give it to him quickly. Heck got scared and told him to take it. Heck thought that even if he was a dwarf, his level would be high if he had such equipment. He would not interfere and would go his own way. The dwarf ordered the boy to put the item carefully into the bag. Heck obeyed and put it, while the dwarf was fixated on something else. Heck said that he had put everything together and asked the gnome what he was doing with his bat. The gnome did not answer and looked at the object. The gnome asked the boy where he got it. Heck asked him what sense. The gnome replied that it was Alakarkin. It is a very common metal on Earth, and the material of his only hunting weapon. That's all he knows about aluminum. But for some reason, this gnome can't buy it even for hundreds of millions of dollars. He said it was the legendary Alakarkin, and the dwarf told him that he had invited him to his workshop to see how to handle this bat. He said that he had refused, but he said he would trade her for rare items he made, and Heck followed him. However, if we forget about all these rare items for a second, why does this gnome set up a workshop in such a dungeon and live alone? Heck said it had been a long time. What was the gnome doing there? It was just aluminum. Maybe he was choosing his weapon in advance. The guy got tired of waiting and started to worry. And then the gnome came out and said that he had already finished. Let him not pay attention and just take it. The gnome said it was nothing compared to this bat. Heck took the object and asked if it was really his bat. The color turned red. The dwarf replied that this was the peculiarity of Aura Harkin. You fool. Although it was a soft and light metal when used simply, the more he enchanted it, the redder and stronger it became. Heck listened to the dwarf attentively and wondered what kind of enchantment was being talked about regarding his item. The guy started swinging his bat and understood one thing. Enchanted items are only obtained from monsters of a rank and above. It turned out to be a very rare item. He asked, is this really his bat? It's very different. He wondered how something like this could be created artificially. Who is this gnome? And the dungeon finally brought luck into his life. Heck opened the stats of this bat and saw that it had S-rank durability. It would be great to sell all of this. Heck asked the gnome what he should do. It already belonged to him, and therefore he could not sell it. The guy said, did he understand correctly that such a bat was now his? The gnome was surprised and started laughing. He told the guy not to worry. It was a reward for having such a good experience. No one else would ever be able to take advantage of it. Heck opened the inventory and said that in the end, there was no money to be made selling it. So he decided to look for other ways to make money. But first he needs to sell these goblins. The problem is how to sell them to him. He can't sell them to the association because of the location. And then he remembered that there was a black market. There was also a black market in the hunting industry where they got rid of bodies without asking where they came from. And their contact information is easy to get. They always hand out business cards to low-ranking hunters who need money. Heck looked at his business card, and when he got there, he said that it seemed to be here. And if you look at it, the business card looks very suspicious. Suddenly, the guy on the balcony asked him, Mr. Kong Hyuk, right? The guy asked in response, Assistant Cho Yunil. Il told the boy to come up here. After all, his master was already waiting. And then Heck was glad that he had found this place, and no one would come here. A man named Lee Chung-chul is an organ dealer who disguises himself as a credit business. He currently buys and sells monster corpses. Chung-chul asks if he can examine the goblin's body. Heck immediately opened his inventory. He didn't understand how this was possible. Confirmation right away, without even greeting the person. Heck immediately showed them and put them in front of them. Il was very surprised and asked, what? Il checked them and told the master that these 20 goblins were in good condition. Cole was thinking in his head, what happened? Judging from his behavior, he was clearly a newbie, and these goblins are in much better condition than he thought. Cole told the guy that the goods were confirmed. Hyuk replied that he asked exactly like that. 20 heads, right? Cole asked the guy what price he was thinking about. The guy pointed and replied, how about 5 million for each head? Cole replied that since the heads were badly damaged, he thought 3 million for each would be enough. Il began to ask the gentleman, who needs such a head? The clothes of these guys are so shredded that they cannot be used even as decoration. Il asked, so how much? Cole was immediately upset because this asshole ruined his plan and wondered why he brought him. Cole said he apologized and asked how about 3.5 each. Hyuk immediately replied that he wanted 4.5 and would not sell for less. Heck said if they don't like it, they can leave. And he'll look elsewhere too. But suddenly a man ran in and shouted to the gentleman that they had big problems. They had to run away quickly. There was a monster there. Cole asked the boy what he was saying. Why did the monster come here? Hyuk immediately thought and remembered that he had heard about it. There's a chance that monster corpses might attract other monsters. Shit, why now? Heck asked Ilya, is this really a real monster? Where is it? The guy answered that it is true. Suddenly 2 orcs appeared. Heck wondered if he was at the right level to do anything about it. This wouldn't do. He had to get out of here first. But first he had to take the goblins' bodies. But when he saw the light, he said it was too late. A large, green orc appeared in front of them, ready to tear them to pieces. Cole told the guy that he was a hunter. Let him do something. Hyuk said no and told him not to do everything in vain. But suddenly the orc flew at him, and Heck was surprised and understood that he would not be able to dodge. And he did not want to die in vain like that. Suddenly the inventory opened, and the bat used its powers and protected the guy from death. The orc immediately felt that he was sliding a little and moved away. Cole asked Il what he was looking at now. The guy answered that he didn't even know. Heck was thinking at this moment, what happened? The bat randomly blocked the orc's attack. Maybe it was a presence detection effect? And then the guy decided to try. He took his bat in his hands and said that we can act. And he started beating the goblin and the orc from different sides. Heck could see with every hit that the damage was done. And he could catch it. This bat was actually cooler. The guy was very happy because he managed to catch an orc. And in that same second, his level rose from 24 to 36. And he was very surprised. Cole shouted to the guy at the same second that there was a monster behind him. There was another orc. Heck dodged the attack and said, what's so sudden? Heck attacked and told the orc that he was a coward. How dare he attack from behind? After all, he would also goad his friend. After knocking out 2 orcs in one day, everyone else was amazed by his abilities. And the guy's level rose to 48. Heck himself couldn't believe that he actually caught 2 orcs. And his weapon turned out to be so strong. Il asked the master what to do now. Cole told the bastard to keep quiet for a bit. Heck immediately turned around and said that, including only the 2 captured orcs, could we start negotiations one more time? Looking at his bank account, he said he would never have thought they would charge 15% above market value. Is this a dream or reality? He decided to relax a little and, lying on the couch, said that now everything was decided. All that was left for him to do was hunt. That day, a black market merchant named Cole, whom he saved from the orcs, decided to continue doing business with him. He's probably not just some dude selling stolen bodies. He's now experienced enough to catch orcs himself. But if he wants to hunt higher-level monsters, it's impossible with the current weapons. And at that moment, something came to his mind. Jumping out of bed, he said with a smile on his face that everything was decided. And now, if he succeeds, he can get items for free. But he needs to think a little. Heck bought a case of drinks and brought it to the dungeon. The dwarf asked the guy. He says it's all for him? The gnome began to examine them and said that this couldn't be. This was all from Alakarkin. Heck answered him that there was alcohol inside. The gnome asked, "Is the drinking vessel made of Alakarkin? Is there holy water in it?" Heck said no, just beer. Let him try it. The dwarf immediately spat it out and asked what the guy told him, that it was beer, and what kind of asinine did he give him. Heck decided he needed to give him something stronger, but he took the second bottle and asked him if it was a bit bland. Thunder called the guy a bastard and said he was making him drink it. Hyuk replied that it was called soju and tasted a little different. The gnome agreed and said that he would drink, but only one sip. He drank and smilingly replied that this could already be called alcohol, but the taste was a bit disappointing. He thought it would be okay if he drank a little more. Heck asked what it was. The gnome said that was what it was about. The guy needed to go and dig up something. Heck was surprised and asked what. The dwarf answered him directly that it was mithril. Heck listened to him, and on the way said what he wouldn't do to get a weapon for free. But he paused for a moment and said that he knew that mithril was a metal, but what did that have to do with soju? But he doesn't know this and decided that he first needs to find it. Walking for an hour in the forest, he was surprised that these are labyrinths, but there are plants here. The system immediately notified him that he had arrived at the second floor of the Dog and Skull Labyrinth. Did he wish to record his current location at the warpoint? Heck was surprised and asked, "What is this?" And should he agree? And immediately accepted the offer. At that very second, a portal opened in front of him. The system said that he could now go from the first to the second floor through this gate. Heck extended his hand and wondered if this was real. It looked like a game. But in any case, the guy said that he made the right choice, and he will be able to use it on the way back. Heck didn't leave and decided to go. Once inside, he said that it was called the Labyrinth of Dogs and Skulls. The dog actually jumped out, but Heck wasn't afraid of him and was confident in himself. He immediately hit him with a bat and said that she was a noisy creature. The system immediately told him that he had risen from level 48 to 49. Heck asked, "Are they that much weaker than an orc?" But looking into the distance, he saw that a pack of dogs were heading in his direction, but this did not frighten him. Heck smiled at this and said that this meant he would get a lot of experience, and he started to smear all the dogs left and right. Having finished off all the dogs, the system notified him that he had risen to level 74. The guy was very happy and said that the level was gradually increasing. The guy opened his inventory and said that given the price of the kobold's body, he had already earned more than 200 million. Heck began to rejoice greatly and laugh, saying that money was flowing like a river. But then the gnome appeared and asked where he had gone for so long. Heck immediately remembered that the dwarf asked him to bring mithril, and now he needs to find it quickly and return. Walking into the room, he said that it seemed to be here, but then a pack of skeletons jumped out at him. Heck was a little surprised and asked, "Are these skeletons?" But he remembered that this labyrinth is called Dogs and Skulls. He understood that he couldn't make money on skeletons, but he started fighting them, and it was already irritating him a little. But suddenly a skeleton jumped out and used a sword in the battle. But Heck unexpectedly repelled his attack. And then he remembered that to kill the skeleton, you need to destroy the core. Looking around carefully, he saw that very core. He didn't waste any time and went straight for the core. But he stopped abruptly and asked when this guy showed up again. But he saw that there were a lot of them, and he decided to try it once. And he went with his bat to the center of the skeletons and destroyed them all. Heck is very tired of such battles and said that this is an excuse for him to drink. He thinks that the goblin will be too lazy to go, so he will order for himself. The system did not leave this without a reward and said that the guy reached level 100 and can now change his class. And his class is determined automatically based on his latest actions. Heck was surprised and said that he already had such a level. Maybe he should change to a warrior, he thought. But at that very moment something came into his head, and he decided to become a priest. And the system fulfilled his request. Heck came to the goblin and threw out the bag, and said that these were the mithrils he asked for. The dwarf was surprised and thought that he was really even in perfect order. The dwarf said he thought the guy would die there, but he's okay. Heck asked if he could see he was barely alive. The dwarf started laughing and said, "How is that possible? It's not that difficult. Is that all the mithril that was there?" Heck thought it looked expensive, so he secretly took some. Isn't that normal? The gnome said that this labyrinth is useless, and he decided to make a weapon first. Is there a function that is especially needed? Heck replied that he had an offensive weapon, so a defensive one would be nice. He thought it would be better if it was stealthy. The gnome looked at the guy and said that it was as easy as pie. Everything would be ready soon. At this time, Heck went home and fell asleep because he was very tired. But suddenly his phone rang. Heck got up and said he had slept for 6 hours and felt light. But it was hot in the workshop and he was tired, so he went to bed. And it's good that he set the alarm. Is everyone finished yet? The gnome did everything in a sweat and answered the guy that he was happy with the result. The dwarf saw the boy come and asked where he had been and where he was going. There was nothing else here. Heck replied that he had just wandered around a bit. Heck saw the object on the table and was surprised. The dwarf said it was his armor. It was for wearing inside, so it was invisible. Let him make peace. The guy lifted the armor and thought that at first glance it was unclear. He had to try it on. The dwarf asked the boy if he had tried it on. Heck replied that he had, and at that very moment the dwarf launched a sledgehammer attack on the armor. Heck was surprised and asked, "What's so sudden?" The dwarf told him to stop talking. "And how is his armor? How strong is the chainmail?" Heck replied that he was so surprised. It really didn't hurt. The blow should have broken his ribs, but they were all fine. With this armor and the bat, his power would increase many times over. And he was so lucky to meet this gnome. The gnome asked the guy if he liked it. Heck replied that everything was fine and thanked him for his help. The gnome turned around and said that no thanks were needed. And in return, he gave the guy a barrel, telling him to take it. Heck asked him what it was. The dwarf replied that it was called. And immediately the guy took it and went home. Heck sat down at the table with the barrel and poured himself some, saying that it was really tasty. Now that's what he calls real alcohol. The boy thought about it and asked how soju got such a taste. He remembered how the dwarf said that if you pour alcohol into a mithril barrel, the taste will be stronger. Even such a lousy drink. Heck was very surprised because soju becomes a completely different drink just by being in this barrel. Hyuk called his black market buyer. Cole asked the guy what he had. The guy replied that he called because he had goods to sell. Cole was surprised and asked, "Really? What monster's bodies this time?" Hyuk replied that he had kobold bodies and alcohol. Cole was surprised and asked, "Alcohol?" At this time, at the 20th gate of the Titan Guild, there was a new hunter training area. People said that this was the end of the battle for new members of the Titan Guild, and now the recruits will collect the corpses. But suddenly a guy ran in and shouted to the deputy that they had a big problem. The lizards were coming again. The deputy thought it was strange, and why are they coming now? And it seems to him that there are 3 times more of them than they just caught. The hunter asked the chief what they should do. They couldn't handle such a number alone. Let him quickly seek help from other hunters. The leader considered this a mockery and was not ready to give it into other hands. For the sake of the Titan Guild and his prestige, he must stop them with his own forces. The chief told the guy not to talk like a weakling. They can handle it themselves. Let him come to his senses and stop them. When a manager came to the guild, she congratulated the guy on his promotion and said that this is a class that uses healing skills, right? And this is a rare class. Heck took his documents and thanked him. He was very happy because he had a promotion. They say that guilds hire healers, even if they just heal from afar. But suddenly the doors opened and the wounded hunter asked if there was a free doctor here. Heck raised his hand and saw that it really happened. He asked the hunter if it was okay if he was only a C rank. The hunter replied that of course, and suggested going right away. At that moment, Heck thought, was his rank really much better than he thought? At this time, the hunters fought with the monsters, but their strength was one level lower and could not cope. The deputy helped the boys avoid death and told them to get ready immediately. Or do they want to die? The leader said that the others were like trash because they only believed in Su-Man. How funny. The leader pounced on the monsters and told them to stick together. He would destroy them all. Seeing this, the deputy shouted at the chief not to do this. While Heck came to help and seeing this thought, who is this guy? The hunter asked Heck to just do as they did. Heck asked if there was anything else he could do to help. The hunter replied that all they needed was to give them strength. He should not be afraid. They would take care of everything when they were done. Heck knew it was dangerous. Well, it wasn't that important to him. The main thing was to get paid. The boys started fighting and felt a surge of strength. The next hunter approached the healer and said that he also needed strength. Heck told the healer that there was no end to this. It would be better to contact another guild and ask for help. The healer replied that he thought so too. Heck knew that if things continued like this, they could be destroyed. But suddenly he felt a monster attacking him from behind, but the bat immediately jumped out and repelled the attack. And the attack starts from behind, while the healers are all here. And then Heck decided that he had to stop them. Heck shouted that there was a surprise attack from behind. The healer asked, where did the monster come from? This is a big problem. The guy told them everything was fine. For now, let them focus on healing. He would stop these guys. The healer asked him what he meant by stopping them. Wasn't he a priest like them? You can't do that. First, let him ask for help for the Titan Guild. Heck replied that no, let them watch. After all, it is difficult for the Titans to cope on their own. The guy was shouting at them not to worry. He's doing this because he's confident. Heck thought at the moment of the battle that although he was nervous at first, everything turned out better than he thought. The guy started to destroy all the monsters, and for a moment, he wondered if it was worth it. But suddenly he saw that one of the monsters attacked the healers. He chased after him and said that he must not let his guard down. He caught up with the monster and attacked, asking where he was running. The monster turned out to be not so simple and threw an arrow from his hand straight at the guy, hoping that he would die. Heck turned around and asked him if he was surprised that the attack didn't work, and he attacked him and killed him with one blow. The healer was surprised and asked, how can a doctor be able to do this? Amazing. How does he defeat them? The boy told the healer that thanks to him, they could calmly focus on healing. And it was true. Heck asked why the lizards were suddenly behaving like this. But in that moment, he saw the light of the sword, and a man crawled out of the monster. This guy's name was So Chong-ho, and he was the leader of the Titan Guild. He asked Hyuk if he was the one who took care of them. Heck replied that it was him. The healers were happy to see the S-rank hunter, San-ho, and Heck asked who he was. The healer asked, isn't he the leader of the Titan Guild? Now we can go home. Ho went to fight and said that it was urgent, so we could talk later. They would definitely compensate him for everything. Heck realized that this was Hunter San-ho. He knew that S-rank hunters were strong. It was clear at first glance. He was perfect. He was a monster. Ho arrived at the center of the battle and told his hunters that everyone was doing well. The deputy asked how he knew about it. The guy told him that he called him. There's nothing wrong with asking other guild members for help, right? Ho said that those who have run out of strength should retreat. Now he will lead the capture. He immediately pounced and told the others that if he understood everything, they should quickly move out of the way. Ho used his energy and launched a long-range attack on the ground, and the monsters were automatically trapped. Hunter said it was amazing. He defeated so many monsters single-handedly. It's not for nothing that he's an S-class. Heck saw all this and thought that he had bypassed allies and destroyed only the monster. He also thought that he was quite strong, but here is who is really strong. Ho killed them all and said that the hunt was over. Let them check the body count and take care of everything. Ho immediately grabbed the deputy and said that he was a bastard. What was he thinking when he tried to figure it out on his own? Was he planning to die with everyone else? Yin replied that if he asked others for help in such a situation, then the guild's reputation would be at stake. Ho said it wasn't about the guild. He thought Yin just didn't want to tarnish his reputation. Yin said that the leader's words were too harsh. Ho lost his temper and was ready to destroy him. But one of the hunters turned to the leader and apologized. Hunter said that they should send away the healers who helped today. Ho told Yin that they were not finished, and they would finish when they returned to the guild. Ho approached the healers and apologized, saying that it was thanks to them that the members of their guild were safe, and especially this guy. He saw the guy take on the lizard ambush all by himself. He has very good skills, but can he find out his name? Heck didn't hesitate and introduced himself. Ho asked him if he was a member of any guild. The guy replied that he wasn't yet. The leader asked, then what about his guild? And they wouldn't require a fee to join. Yin immediately intervened and asked the leader, what does this mean? This guy was a low-ranking hunter not long ago. He remembers him. He was probably just lucky enough to become a priest, but he had a long way to go. Ho immediately shouted at Yin and said that if it weren't for this guy, his people would have died. He's the one who saved the reputation that would have been lost because of his idiocy. Moron. Heck saw that the guild leader was really worried about it. Ho told Yin, if he understood, he should go and apologize. Heck told the leader that he appreciated his offer, but he would decline. He couldn't trust such a vice leader. Yin did not tolerate such disrespect and attacked him. But suddenly a bat appeared and hit him. The advisors read the news after this and asked the head whether he would not do anything even after such an article. Now I need to bring this C-rank guy in to refute everything. And what kind of resignation? You may have made a mistake, but this punishment is unfair. And if the leader keeps silent, it will damage the reputation of the Titan Guild. Ho said that it was not that person who damaged the reputation, but Yun. Because of his authority, recruits almost died. Moreover, he even attacked a person who helps their guild. He thinks that's a good enough reason to remove him from his position as vice guild leader. What do they think? The advisors began to doubt. Ho told them to stop messing around. He proposed to close the matter there. Ho thought that Heck wasn't just a C-rank hunter. Before he got any stronger, he had to get him on his side. At this time, Heck was sitting at home and saying that he had earned money and it seemed that he had bought too much. He had spent too much. But if he had known in advance, he would have received the additional reward when it was offered. And he decided that it didn't matter to him because he had another source of income anyway. Coming back to the portal, he thought that the ordinary monsters he had caught before were no longer enough, especially since he had become much stronger now. And then Heck looked around and said that he needed someone more powerful. And running in the labyrinth, he saw that he had gone quite deep. But suddenly he turned around and heard a sound that sounded like a monster. And at that very moment, an orc appeared in front of him. Heck wasn't scared and said that he was such a moron for attacking from behind. The guy knocked him out right then and there. The guy said that the orc was just fine, and if he destroyed more of those, there would be no need to worry about money for now. Heck pointed his fingers at the orcs and told them to attack. It was time to make money. The guy looked at his inventory and said that now he could kill 20 orcs at a time without any problems. And he thought about going a little deeper. As he was going down the stairs, he said that apparently it was here. I wonder what awaits him here. Looking around, he said that this place looks like some kind of temple. It's a bit gloomy here. The system popped up and informed the guy that he had arrived at the 3rd level of the Temple Defender's Labyrinth. Heck was very happy and said that he had come to the right place. He became curious and asked why there were no monsters visible, or was this some kind of safe zone? But suddenly, unexpectedly, stones began to crumble from the ground, and in a second a large hand came out. Heck said he knew it. There can't be monsters here, and he even managed to dodge the attack. The guy started to defend himself and felt that this monster was special and very fast. Heck saw that he had blocked it, but the monster had broken free. What was going on? Such power and agility. If he wasn't careful, it could be dangerous. Looking closer, he noticed that the monster's body was made of stone. Heck said that he had heard of such a thing. It was a monster created artificially. So it was a golem. Heck decided that he would fight him and attacked. But judging by that, he thought that he had fallen for a primitive deception. His intelligence is rather low. But his physical data is excellent, but his head is not in harmony. Heck destroyed him with his bat and said that nothing will stop him from defeating him. The guy calmed down after this and said that it was nothing special, but he had worried for nothing. But he saw that something was about to happen because these stones began to reassemble into one whole. Heck was surprised by this because he clearly saw that he had smashed his head, but he remained alive. And in a second, he remembered that this monster would not die until he broke its core. His mistake. First, he had to retreat and then think about the strategy again. But suddenly another monster appeared and grabbed the guy by the leg. But suddenly an arrow flew past and hit the monster. Heck immediately saw and understood that the core was in the middle of the chest. And then this one also needs to be attacked in the chest. Heck handled him well and said it was dangerous. If it hadn't been for that arrow, he might have died. But who helped him, he asked. But maybe Uncle Devora came down? But in the dust, he saw an image appear. He immediately realized that it was not his uncle, but a girl. She had some strange ears. Could this really be an elf? Heck bowed to her and thanked her for her help. But the girl grabbed him and said that she saw him for the first time in this dungeon. She asked him who he was and where he came from. Heck was surprised and asked her what she was talking about. The girl asked him again where he belonged. It was the first time she had seen such clothes. How long has he been locked up in this dungeon? When did he come here? Heck asked her to wait. Locked up? He came here today. The girl was surprised and asked him, is it true? Heck answered that he was answering her. The girl became interested and asked, what does it mean that there is an entrance to the dungeon? Heck didn't hide it and replied that of course there was. The girl replied that she understood everything and pushed him to the ground. The girl said that she seemed to have finally found a way to get out of here. Heck got angry and asked what she was doing. The girl told him to take her to the exit through which he had entered here. Heck thought at that moment, who is she that orders him? But she is quite beautiful. The girl said that naturally she would give a reward. She is a white gold rank mercenary. She can be trusted. Heck was surprised and asked, a white gold rank mercenary? The girl answered that it was so. She was the half-elf Lucia. Had he ever heard her name? Heck replied that he had never done so. Lucia asked, really? She thought she was famous. But it didn't matter. And she introduces herself again. Her name is Lucia. As he can see, she is a white gold rank mercenary. Does he see her mercenary badge? Will he recognize that? Heck stared at her and asked what it was. Lucia asked him, didn't he recognize the badge? Did he come from a remote village? Where is he from? She asked. Heck replied that he was from Seoul. Where is she from? She had never heard of elves living in Korea. Lucia thought about it and asked where it was. She thought about it because it was the first time she heard such names. Could it be that that crazy man succeeded and was able to move to another dimension? Lucia asked him another question. Was this his first time here today? Heck replied that no. He had been here several times already. Lucia said that it meant that the crazy magician managed to use the magic of moving between dimensions. Heck asked her what she was talking about. Lucia replied that, to put it simply, it seemed like this dungeon had been transported to this world from another dimension, all because of one crazy mage. The guy asked if that was possible. Lucia asked, and that's what she was talking about. But that's even good. If he managed to move between spaces, then he could return. He just needed to improve his magic techniques. Heck understood, because he felt that something was wrong here. It turned out that this dungeon was not from this world, and it would be disadvantageous for him if the dungeon went back to its dimension. Heck asked her if she wanted to send the dungeon back to its world. Lucia replied that no, it wouldn't work now, although there was such a possibility here. Heck asked her if there was a possibility. The girl replied that yes, there was a room on this floor where something was hidden. The guy asked in surprise, a secret room? Lucia answered that yes. She accidentally found it when she was looking for a way to return. So, could the guy help her? Heck asked her what. Lucia replied that to get there, you need to kill the boss monster. The guy asked why he should help her in such a matter. The girl answered that he should not worry. For this, she would tell him something important. And she would also give him the reward for the boss. And how did he like this offer? Heck thought about it and agreed that the conditions were not bad. Heck didn't think long and replied that he would help her. And they began to fight the huge monster. Heck noticed during the battle that this girl was quite strong. Lucia told the guy that he was stronger than she thought. The guy understood that fighting with her would be unprofitable. First, they needed to unite and see the situation. Continuing on his long journey, Heck asked the girl if they were still far. Lucia replied that they had walked about halfway. But suddenly Heck grabbed his stomach and suggested to the girl that they rest a little, especially since he was hungry. After all, there are no monsters here. Lucia thought about it and agreed that they should make a stop. Heck took chocolate with him to the battle, and after eating it, he asked Miss Lucia if she wanted to try it. Lucia told the guy that he had previously said his name was Heck. The guy replied that it was true. The girl replied that he should address her as you. Heck said that he still couldn't do that to a man older than him. Lucia immediately pulled the arrow and asked an older man. By elven standards, she was still very young. Heck raised his hands and said that was not what he had in mind, and he agreed to her terms. Lucia said that she doesn't eat everything yet, but after trying chocolate, she couldn't stop. Lucia finished all his chocolate and asked him if he had any more. Heck replied that it was the last one. Lucia said she was sorry. She wanted to enjoy the food she liked. Heck said he thought 3 boxes would be enough. Lucia said that since they had filled their stomachs, it was time to move on. There was no point in waiting for the monsters here. Heck asked the girl if this was the boss monster's room. Lucia replied that it was. Heck told the girl that she promised him a reward, so he agreed. What exactly is she looking for? Lucia replied that there was a high probability that the mage had left records of his spells in this room. Heck immediately wondered if maybe he had agreed to help in vain. Lucia told the guy to get ready. The boss was coming. Heck asked what he had to do. The girl said that nothing special. It would be enough to see the matter through to the end. Heck was surprised and asked what. Lucia replied that there were no other monsters. She could handle this alone. Heck asked her if she was going to destroy it alone. She was sure she could do it, and that monster looked really strong. Lucia said it was okay. She had promised to tell him something important, so he should watch carefully. It was called Aura. Heck was so surprised when he saw this sight that he couldn't even close his eyes. He thought, what is this? Lucia shot her arrow at him, and it hit the target. Heck was surprised and didn't understand how she could take out such a huge monster with one blow. Heck asked her if she wanted to tell him about the technique. Lucia said that was right. It was just amazing, right? It's called Aura. Incredibly powerful. Heck asked if she would really teach him this. Lucia replied that she would. She had promised. The girl asked him how he felt. Did he want to learn? Heck immediately answered, of course. Heck thought that the technique was incredibly powerful. He couldn't even imagine such a thing. Lucia said they had to finish this boss monster first. Heck said he'd handle it. Lucia asked him, he knows where the core is, right? Heck said, of course. He remembered what he had just learned, and he hit the target. Heck saw his bat fall through. He thought it was weak. Maybe one hit wasn't enough? Raising his head, he was very surprised. The monster immediately attacked, but Heck managed to use his protective shield. Lucia herself was also surprised. It seemed very familiar to her, the technique itself and the aura. Heck didn't lose his cool and rushed at the monster, saying that if he couldn't do it in one go, he would hit him until he broke it. He didn't stop and started to attack, so hard that he shattered it into tiny pieces. The system immediately popped up and said he had leveled up to 185. Heck apologized and said it took a little longer. So now she's going to teach him how to use aura? Lucia asked what he was talking about. He just used her. Heck was surprised and asked, did he use aura? The girl replied that yes. He had just used aura with divine power. Heck asked if she was talking about a skill by any chance. Lucia asked, a skill? She doesn't know what it is, but it looks like he can learn it much faster. Heck asked, is it true? Lucia answered, yes, it is true. He has the priest crass, right? Divine power is a modified aura. Heck said that it means he can use it right now. The girl replied that she doesn't even know. It depends on how he uses the technique. Heck immediately became happy and said that he was ready to start right away. Lucia replied that they had some conditions. At this time in the city, Chief Ho asked his assistant where exactly the strange phenomena were noticed. The girl answered that it was in the area of Gangnam Station. They were spotted yesterday. Strong monsters will appear within 5 days. This girl was Ho's secretary, and her name was Lee Hina. Ho said that he thought their guild couldn't handle it alone. Lee asked the leader what he was suggesting. The other big guilds were overseas, and they were the only ones left in Korea now. Ho asked, why exactly in the center of Seoul? Lee answered that she is currently looking for hunters who work in Korea as freelancers. Ho said that among those who remained normal, there was one such person. And then he noticed Heck, who was walking from the other side. Lee asked the boss where he was going. Ho told the girl to go back to the office. He had some things to do. Lee asked him where he was suddenly going. Ho replied that he would rather return and pass on the association's request to the workers. Heck bought all the chocolate there was in the store and said he thought it would be enough. Ho caught up with the guy and asked why he had taken so much. Heck replied that he himself did not understand what he was doing now. Ho asked him if he had thought about his offer. Heck replied that if he was joining the guild, he thought he had already explained everything to him. Ho asked, then what about a mercenary? Heck was surprised and asked, a mercenary? The leader replied that he would pay generously. Heck said he would think about it. Meanwhile, Lucia was enjoying the chocolate and saying it was delicious. Heck thought that it seemed like there was no food like that in her world. Lucia grabbed her stomach and said that she was full. Heck asked why she was in this basement. They had already destroyed the boss monster. The girl asked if he could see that pattern on the ceiling. Heck replied that he saw it. And what next? Lucia replied that it was a magic circle. Didn't he recognize it? Heck was surprised and asked, is that what this thing is called? Lucia asked him, hasn't he heard about a magic circle? What world does he live in? The girl decided and told him to forget. Just let him remember that for her this dungeon is the way into his world. She'll be here for a while to do some research, so if he wants to learn how to control the aura, he'll have to bring her a lot of chocolate chip cookies. Lucia agreed and asked, then they'll start right now? Heck was surprised and asked, why does she need his hands? Lucia replied that this was the fastest way to master the aura. Let him concentrate. Now streams of aura will begin to flow into his body. Let him remember this feeling. And here they begin. Heck felt something flowing into his body. Were they blood vessels? But no, he thought it was something else. Some kind of inner force. At that moment, Heck's eyes grew several times larger. He felt that he could feel her, and that was an aura. Lucia was shocked and realized that this guy had quite good abilities. The movement of divine power was simply unprecedented. She thinks he can master the basics today. Heck looked at his hand and didn't understand. It seemed like he had grasped the principle. Lucia said she could see he wasn't completely talentless. Will she be able to remember this trend? Heck was very happy and answered that yes. He asked the girl where she went. She said she had to explore this magic circle. Lucia replied that the problem with the circle could not be solved now anyway. It would take time. It would be faster if he mastered the aura first. Heck asked what? Is there a way to do that? Lucia replied that of course there was. It was practice. And so Heck and the girls got to the monsters and started fighting. Heck fought them alone as a great warrior and did not even think of backing down and destroyed them all. Heck told the girl that she said she would tell him how to use aura. Why did she just make him hunt monsters? Lucia replied that she promised to share with him so that he would understand the principle. The rest he had to learn himself. All he has to do is activate the aura with the help of divine power and master the technique. Moreover, there is nothing better than practice to do this. Heck said that he should have said so right away. How could he just throw him to those monsters? Lucia watched the battle and said that a person is more focused in a critical situation. Heck replied that he didn't care. The girl told him to concentrate and feel the divine power he was using. That shield was also summoned using aura. Once he understood the principle, he could easily master the technique. Heck actually understood that it was only easy in words. Lucia told him to act now. Let him think about the feeling when he used the shield. Heck immediately used a protective shield with ease. He thought, what should he feel from this skill? But he decided to try again and felt that he felt something. as if some energy had entered him from outside. He felt it gathering in his left hand, which activated the skill. This is divine power, he thought. Heck pulled himself together and decided he had to try again, and he went straight to using the sacred shield. But something seemed strange to him, and he stopped abruptly. What did he think it was? The shape of the sacred shield was somehow strange. And after waiting a minute, is this really it? He doesn't even have time to rest. He has to keep fighting. Lucia said she told him to focus on the sensations and not make stupid mistakes. Heck replied that he did everything as she said. But suddenly he saw that he had acquired a skill out of the blue. And it turns out that he had a way to gain new skills other than changing classes. But Lucia drew her arrow and said that during the aura training stage, golems can be difficult to deal with. So here she is to him. But at that moment, Heck told the girl to move away. He could handle him himself. And then he pounced on the attack. He saw that the golem was not giving up either and dodging the attack. He thought that he needed to concentrate to remember the sensations. After delivering his devastating attack, he decided that he needed to put all his mana into the bat. Having destroyed the golem, he realized that he had almost succeeded. One more time, he needed more concentration. Heck instantly switched to another level, and his mana completely covered his body and his weapon. Lucia couldn't believe it. This guy had already started using aura. At that moment, Heck sighed and caught his breath. Heck was delighted and felt that he had really succeeded. The system immediately said that he had mastered the skill. Divine Power, Application Stage 3. Accurate Strike, Stamina. He now realized that with the help of Divine Power, he can now use new skills. Heck said loudly that this is very cruel. Lucia came up to him and said that he did well. Heck replied that he seemed to understand the principle. And what did she think? Lucia knew at the moment that he was capable, but she didn't think that she would be able to use aura so quickly in battle. Heck asked if he had done something wrong. Lucia replied that no, he was doing well. After all, she had intended to tell him in a few words and leave it at that, but that was how it had turned out. Heck knew that thanks to Lucia's training, he now had 3 passive skills and 1 active skill that he could use in battle. Lucia came up to him and asked if he had rested enough and immediately pointed an arrow at him. Heck got scared and asked what she was doing. The girl replied that then we must go further, and he released an arrow. It hit the wall, which exploded. Lucia told the boy that if he had started, he should finish it, right? And then the elves ran out of the wall. Heck said that this elf was worse than any demon, and if he had known that this would happen, he would have taken a mana potion with him. Damn it! And he decided that he would fight to the end. Cole asked Mr. Hyuk if something had happened to him. The guy replied, nothing special. It's just so hard for him. Cole thought at that moment, what's the matter? It was as if he had been on a battlefield. Cole said that he understood everything and said that he would buy everything that he brought, the corpses of goblins, kobolds, and orcs, and about that alcohol he gave him last time. And then Heck understood the gist of the conversation and felt relieved. Heck took a case of the drink and said that as soon as he said that it was traditional soju from a real master, people started buying it up. And with such popularity, you don't have to worry about money. Just sell vodka. Sell soju for 150,000, when around the clock it sells for 2,000. He's just Robin Hood. Heck understood only one thing. The heavier the wallet, the lighter the soul. It felt as if all worries had disappeared. The guy came home, and lying on the couch felt that this time it was very hard. He thinks that for several days in a row he will only sleep. And after talking to Lucia, he felt that she was from another world. The skills that are common to them are simply absent in her world. She uses mana flows instead of keywords to activate, so she can't use skills as easily, but she can use them in different ways. If you take note of this, maybe. But he fell asleep suddenly, and when he opened his eyes in the morning, he asked, what kind of disaster warning? What happened? At this time in the city, the head said that an emergency situation had occurred. They asked citizens who were on the street to quickly go to shelter. Heck opened his phone and asked, what date is it today? Is today the day when monsters appear? But it's faster than expected. He lay back on the couch and said he doesn't know anything. He's tired and doesn't want to do anything. Some guild or association will figure out themselves. He knew that before this was a chance for him to kill at least a small monster, but now, when he was clearing dungeons, it didn't make much sense. He'd rather sleep. But suddenly his phone turned on, and he asked what was going on with him. But it was a warning 3 times bigger than a threat. And Heck decided that was a different story. Heck went outside with his bat and told the monsters to hold on. Monsters usually appear randomly, but there are also regular appearances. The police met people and told them to go to the underground shelter. Once a month, around the end of the month, such large invasions occur. The police said that if they break through the wall, they won't be able to control them. Let them focus more on defense than attack. Chief Ho also went out to hunt, and while delivering his crushing attacks, he told his fighters to stay on guard. People said that the guild leader and the top-ranked hunters would deal with the monsters. But Ho saw that there was no end to them. Yin was also in the hunting team and knew that this was different from the usual monster invasion. Ho saw that his hunter was in an awkward position and could die. He shouted at the guy to dodge and destroy the goblin. The boy thanked the chief for saving him. Ho told him to be careful. There was no telling where a monster might come from. Ho saw and understood that their possibilities were limited, their strength was running out. The warrior spoke to his ally, and did he see how the guild leader dealt with that giant with one blow? Lee watched the battle and saw that the guild leader was also gradually losing strength. The situation was becoming dangerous. But if only there was at least one hunter who could help him. And then he suddenly saw that the boy was fighting and destroying monsters. Heck felt as if someone was calling him during the battle. He immediately picked up the phone and asked who it was. The girl replied that her name was Lee. She was the personal secretary of the Titan Guildmaster. And what was the name of the guy she was talking to? She asked. Was it Kong Hyuk? Heck asked, Titan Guild? Is she calling because of the monster invasion? Lee asked her how he knew. Heck replied that he was right nearby. If she decided to call him, then the situation was not the best. He did not think that the guild members would treat him well. Lee said she understood if they had done something to hurt him. However, stopping the invasion was more important, which is why she was calling him. Heck told her to listen to him first. Lee immediately said that they would give him a reward on the terms he named. The guy immediately replied that it was a good deal. He would like to achieve results, but for one monster, 5 times more. If she agrees, he will sweep everyone away. Lee said that judging by the fact that he was currently hunting, he was somewhere nearby. They would discuss the details when they met. Moreover, she needed to pass on something to him. She would wait for him near the mobile phone shop in the Ganjian building. Lee met with him and said she couldn't promise 4 times as much. Heck replied that when they spoke on the phone, he had clearly said he wanted 5 times as much. Lee approached him and said that to be precise, he was a C-rank priest class. She asked him to consider her offer with a reward 4 times the usual. Heck agreed and said that they would consider him to be making concessions to her. Lee immediately remembered and put the object on his hand. The guy asked, "What is it?" Lee replied that it was a tool that measured the magical power of monsters and converted it into points. In simple terms, a monster counter. But suddenly several monsters attacked them, and Heck told her to lie down and easily knock them both out. The counter immediately showed that he had 2 goblins and 2 points. Lee said that this is how points are marked depending on the monster's level. Lee looked at her phone and said that currently, the hunters on the front lines had already earned an average of 82 points. If he expects to be rewarded sufficiently, he should earn more than this figure. Heck asked her if she knew what real healing was. Lee replied that she didn't even know. The ability to resurrect the dead? Heck replied that destroying the one who was causing the damage was the ultimate healing. And now he would show her that. Lee saw that even if Hiku managed to defeat Yun, his abilities were still not good. She hoped that he would be as good as the guild leader expected. Hiku came across a goblin, and at the moment of attack, he told him that the monster should look closely at what Lucia taught him. The system immediately jumped up and warned that the use of divine power had been activated at stage 3. The hunters asked who is he, how strong he is, and where did such a hunter come from. Heck knew that with such a technique, he could easily destroy monsters stronger than his level. The warriors asked again, what kind of hunter was this? He killed this ogre with one blow? At least an A-rank hunter. Heck told the boys that they were quite right. He was now stronger than the rank they had assumed. Heck drank the protein and realized that thanks to Lucia's training, he was now level 200. Initially, he didn't have enough strength to fight the ogre, but if he maintains his mana, he is stronger than A-rank hunters. He has 1,500 of these mana potions in stock. This means that all these monsters will become his profit. Yin killed the monster in an instant and wondered what was going on. And why were there fewer monsters? The hunters at this moment said that no one, not even an A-rank hunter, could deal with them. Who is he? Yin immediately understood and said that this is the one. The hunter was surprised and said, how could he not know a hunter who has such abilities? Yin called his comrades. What are they thinking about? If they're finished, quickly help the others. Yin asked, what is this bastard doing here? There is a limit to impudence. How dare he appear here? But even better this way. That day, he was careless, but today, he will teach him a lesson. But Heck immediately sensed danger. Turning around, he launched a counterattack with a bat and said that all sorts of psychos were pestering him again, and that he was already busy. Ho saw the huge monster and immediately felt a bad feeling. Mana is almost at 0. Why did such a monster appear now? The buffalo immediately raised his hammer and began to attack. Ho thought, first he needs to replenish his mana. But then Heck came running and told the chief to lend his shoulder. And then he grabbed the buffalo by the horns and put it on the ground. Ho immediately saw that the hunter Heck, so he came. He had recently reached C rank, and he was already able to lay down a minotaur. Ho realized that his instincts had not failed him after all. Heck said that it looked like he had lost consciousness. Could he finish him off? Ho replied that of course, because it was his merit. Heck immediately raised the bat above his head and said that he would not refuse. The system immediately popped up and warned him that he had destroyed the minotaur and his level had been raised. Ho came up and told Heck that he knew he would leave him, and thanked him for his help. The guy replied that his secretary called him. He just took the chance to make money. No need to thank him. Ho extended his hand and asked if he would join their guild. He would have many more opportunities like this in the future, and he will do everything so that he gets for his achievements. He hopes that he will make a decision in a positive way. Heck said that first we need to deal with the remaining monsters. Ho answered the guy. It turns out he is not simple. Lee called her boss and said something unexpected had happened. Ho asked what had happened. She told him to look up. Looking at the sky, he didn't understand and asked what was wrong with the weather. Heck asked why the cloud appeared only in that place. Suddenly, thunder and lightning appeared in the sky, which were released at great speed straight at the monsters. Ho told Lee to report the situation. What's going on? The girl replied that the monster's reactions were captured in this cloud. But one thing, its body length reaches 500 meters. This monster released his lightning again and hit the guild leader straight, but he managed to defend himself. Ho asked Hunter Heck if he could handle it. The boy replied that he thought everything would be fine. Heck asked what kind of monster it was. Ho replied that it was the first time he had seen such a huge flying monster. At this altitude, his skills won't work. Is there no way to attack him? Heck asked. Ho replied that he had to look, but for now he had to head towards the guild and find out the situation. If Heck didn't mind, could he go with him? The guy didn't want to take any risks and agreed. Ho came to his guild and looked at the cameras. Lee said that the lightning rod had no effect. The leader asked how to get to him in the air. Lee replied that they had already tried with drones, but they couldn't get close. He had destroyed them all, and it was difficult to get close by air. Lee said the monster hits any target within a 1 kilometer radius on the ground and in the air with 100% accuracy. Ho thought of one strategy and said that he would have to attack from an ambush that his lightning could not reach. Heck thought at this time and understood that it would not be easy. A person was needed who could destroy the giant monster from a long distance. But where could he get one like that, he thought. But suddenly it occurred to him that he had Lucia. Heck turned to the boys and told them to listen to him. He thought he had found a way to catch this monster. Would they like to try? Han Suk, one of the leaders of the Titan Guild, asked the leader if he really trusted this C-rank priest. After all, they couldn't even find a way. What could this hunter offer? The hunter also told the chief that he could hit from a distance of 300 meters. and it's only worth getting closer to 300 meters, and he will be able to destroy it with one blow. Ho said that he already said during the briefing that he destroys the target with a 100% probability within a radius of 1 kilometer. They have a way to solve this problem. The hunter suggests this. The hunter immediately began to deny everything and said that he misspoke. Lee came up and told the chief that since this was the situation, they would have to wait for help from Githia. Ho replied that no, they can't rely on them. Githia is a guild that only has A-rank mages. With their abilities, they could deal with this monster, but they don't care one bit about the safety of the residents. They will only focus on catching the monster. If they just watch him from the sidelines, there will be less damage. Now the only hope is for Hunter Kong Hyuk. The chief said that if this doesn't work, he will risk his own life and try to get there himself. At this time, Hek brought Lucia to his world to help him with the monster. He thanked her for her help. Lucia said she didn't have much to do, so she agreed. In return, he would get her sweets from his world, as they had agreed. When she went outside, Lucia started saying that the air here was very dirty, and that it felt like her life was getting shorter with every breath. The girl told the boy that he was living well in such a place. Hek replied that there was nothing to be done. He had to live. But how could she destroy this monster? Lucia was surprised and asked him who he took her for. She could hit such a huge monster even with her eyes closed. Hek said he asked her if she could destroy it. It's a Leviathan monster, 300 levels. That's the highest level ever. Lucia took her arrow and told the boy that he would have to help her a little. Hek asked what was needed. Lucia replied that the surroundings looked too fragile to bear her power. If he didn't want to see buildings collapse, he'd better help. And one more thing, we need to solve this problem. Hek called the chief and said he had a question. When this huge monster hits the ground, it will destroy the buildings. It can't be avoided. Is he ready for that? Ho immediately replied that of course there was no need to worry about that. Let him just think about catching the monster. Hek said that he understood everything and warned the chief to get ready, because it was about to start. Hek told Lucia that he had decided everything and that she should start preparing. The girl was surprised and replied that she had already done everything. She said she could shoot at any moment. Was he ready? Hek used his defense and said he was ready. She immediately released her arrows, so much so that Hek even felt it all and didn't realize that she was so strong. Lee told the chief that 2 shells were rapidly approaching the target. There was 1 second left until the target, and then there was a precise hit. The target was completely shot down. The monster was shot down. The hunters were surprised and could not believe it. Hek told the girl that although she said that power should be restrained, wasn't that too much? Lucia replied that this world was too weak. Couldn't they handle such a monster? Hek replied that she was simply too strong. The guy said that he thanked her anyway. Lucia replied that she wasn't helping for free. And then he handed her the body reading item. And he asked for it back when they destroyed the monster. Could this really serve as proof? Hek replied that this was the system. Lucia started to leave and told him to be careful. You shouldn't trust people. When there is a big prize at stake, a person easily loses his mind. She was often betrayed when she was a hunter. Hek told her not to worry. As soon as he noticed something, he would not remain silent. On the way, Lee told the leader that it was Hek. Ho told the guy that he had done something incredible. The guy replied that he was just lucky. Ho asked the boy if he didn't mind. Could he tell him how he managed to destroy the monster? Hek apologized and said it was a secret. Sok flared up and asked him, what other secret? He didn't do it himself, so he can't tell. Hek told him that if they didn't believe him, they should check this. And he immediately gave him an object for reading bodies. Sok took it and asked in surprise, 240 points? That can't be. The leader has 173 points. Lee said that this is the counter she gave to Hunter Hek. The probability of fake results is 0. Ju said that the guy could then provide later when they give out the reward. What is he waving at them here? Hek replied that Guild Master Ho had promised him something. After all, he was the one who had caught the monster, so naturally he had to take care of the reward himself. And the Guild Master had given his consent. Sun asked the boy if he even knew how much the corpse of this monster was worth. Did he think his stupid arguments would work on the Titan Guild? If he wanted to finish this without any problems, he might as well start now. Ho immediately told Sok that he shouldn't behave like that. The Titan Guild isn't in poverty. Why is he saying that? Doesn't he know that the guild's authority is more important than any money? Sok realized his mistakes and apologized. Ho replied that they would talk in the guild and let him come back. Ho told the boy that he apologized. As he promised, he would pay and also provide all rights to the corpse of this monster. And he hopes that they can continue to fight together. Heck knew he couldn't trust the Titan Guild, but he thought he could. Heck thought about it and replied that he hoped so too. Sok was thinking at that time that the leader would think about the benefit of the guild at that time, but he took the side of this hunter, although the Titan Guild still needs him. But if he continues to behave like this and interfere with the development of the guild, then he will have to take action. The hunter asked his friend if he knew what rumors were going around. It was about the monster that appeared in the sky. It was officially announced that he was destroyed by the guild leader Titan Ho, but in reality, it was done by some S-rank hunter. The guy said it couldn't be. How could an S-rank hunter handle such a strong monster? That's why the guild leader personally invited him to join the guild. But they say he refused. The hunter replied that how confident was he in his abilities since Sam Ho personally contacted him? The Ultron Guild Scout was talking on the phone and saying that Hunter Yin had good abilities. How did that happen? The man said he had tested the waters, and it seemed to be the work of that C-rank hunter. The scouter replied that it meant the rumors were true, and he would learn more about him. The scouter said that he thought that C-rank hunter was a hidden class. The guy asked him if he was being too hasty. Hidden classes aren't that common. Scouter said that it was because of the 3 hidden class members that their guild was able to rise so high. He couldn't let another guild take it. Either they will take him first or destroy him. At this time, Heck was sleeping and, waking up in the morning, he asked how long he had slept. He opened his phone and said he didn't think he'd been lying around like a log for 2 days. It looked like his body was reacting to overload, and he needed to order something to eat first. Coming out into another room, he was surprised. He suddenly saw Lucia. She asked him too, is he already awake? Heck looked around and asked what she had turned his house into, but Lucia didn't answer and just ate. Heck collected all the candy wrappers and said that he collected it all to give to her, and she ate it in 2 days. Lucia asked what she could do if it was delicious, especially since it was the only thing she had found edible in the house. Heck said that then she could go back to where she came from. Why did she wait here for him to wake up? Lucia replied that she was looking after him while he was sleeping. Moreover, if she could, she would leave immediately. She also has no desire to be in a place where the air is so dirty. Heck asked what she was talking about. Lucia replied that he had not opened the entrance to the dungeon for her, so she could not go back there. Heck asked, what nonsense? The door leading to the dungeon is here. Let him see. It's in the same condition. Lucia asked, what's the matter? And when she tried, there was nothing. Really? And then she asked him to move away from the door. The girl opened the door and made sure that there was nothing. Now he was convinced of her words? Heck asked what was going on. Lucia asked the guy if he didn't know that either. Heck replied that of course not. The entrance to the dungeon always opened when he was there. Lucia replied that it was quite possible that that crazy magician had placed him in the dimensional travel indicator. Heck asked if she could explain it more simply. Lucia replied that it meant that the final destination of this dungeon was him, so it opened where he was. Heck asked, what if something goes wrong? The dungeon falls on his head? The girl answered that he was smart. It was good that this magic failed. Heck said it seemed like the luck of his life. And then he grabbed his stomach and asked why the delivery hadn't arrived yet. The delivery man immediately knocked and apologized, saying that it was very strange. He circled around a few times, but he couldn't find his apartment. Heck told the girl that they had brought a delivery and invited her to eat it too. Lucia asked if it was sweet too. The guy replied that it wasn't quite that sweet, but it was delicious. Let her try it. The girl asked him how he found this place. His house had a magic to reduce recognition. Heck asked what was cast. Lucia replied that it was a magic of reducing recognition. No one would be able to find his house, even if they knew the address. Simple but effective magic. Heck asked why she had placed it on his apartment. Lucia replied that while he was sleeping, some strange people had come here. The guy asked, strange people? The girl answered that some Guardians Ultron. People from the guilds came and said something there. They were so annoying that she cast magic so that they would not interfere anymore. The guy became curious and asked why such large guilds needed him. What happened while he was sleeping? He immediately opened the news and read that Hunter Heck, who defeated a huge monster, had also been published by someone on video. And they gave a gag order, and the media couldn't keep it secret. Lucia asked him why he wasn't eating. What was he doing? Any problems? Heck replied that he didn't know if that was a problem. The problem was that he had become too popular. The girl asked him if he was crazy. Heck knew he wanted too much. He had passed off the merits as his own so that it would be profitable for him. But with this came fame, which he is unable to cope with. Hazing is too widespread in the guilds. As soon as even the most insignificant competitor appears, a race with him begins. Heck said he wanted to get the monster's body, but it ended up being an extra headache. But why regret something that already happened? Heck told Lucia that if she had eaten, she should take her equipment and go to the dungeon. Heck knew that now he had to make sure that he didn't have to meet with any hunters or guilds and become even stronger. He will level up, kill monsters, and get more powerful items. The elf said he hadn't seen such a big Leviathan for a long time. But why did he bring only the head? Where's the rest? Heck replied that there was, of course, in the body. But the insides had rotted. They were no longer usable. Lucia also said that he was too weak and could not withstand her arrows. The elf said that he doesn't value raw materials at all. That's why there's no use in such long-eared creatures as him. The elf told the girl to stop spreading her elven smells in his house and get out of here. Lucia got angry and told him to give her the arrows he promised. Then she would leave herself. The elf asked her what? No arms, no legs? Let him take them and get lost. Heck asked if something could be made from this head. The elf asked if he brought it without knowing anything. The elf touched his head and said that he was still alive. And then he took out a ball from it, telling him to look carefully. This is the most valuable part of the Leviathan's carcass. Heck asked what it was. The elf said he used it to shoot lightning. The guy said it was what made the lightning. The elf told the boy that he had guessed correctly. If he enchanted his Orhall club, he would be able to shoot lightning himself. Heck asked him what he wanted as payment. Let him just say it. He would pay. The elf replied that he didn't need the chamber, but if he wanted to help him, then drive that long-eared one out of here. She can't be here. Heck laughed and said that he seemed a little on edge before such an important matter. Let her be understanding about it. Lucia immediately pulled her arrow and said that this time she would make a hole in his head. Heck told her to be patient. He is a little rough, but he is kind at heart. Lucia asked the guy what the hell he was talking about. How was he being kind? Heck replied that he would buy her the most delicious candy. Just let her be patient. On the way home, Heck wondered if Lucia was cursed so she could eat sweets. A normal person would have developed diabetes long ago. Maybe he should just buy sugar right away. But suddenly he stopped and felt something. After mastering the aura technique, his senses became sharper. But he also felt that someone was watching him now, and this made him very wary. He needed to be more careful. Heck immediately took out his bat and told the man to stop hiding like a rat. Let him come out immediately. Suddenly, the assassin ran out and said that he couldn't believe that he felt his presence. Assassin made his first attack, and Heck was able to block it. He said it was not bad for a C-class. Heck asked who he was. Why did he attack him out of nowhere? The assassin was surprised that the guy blocked him again. So the rumors were true. This power can't belong to a C-class. Heck immediately pounced on him and said that he would simply beat the answers out of him. The assassin understood one thing at that moment, that blows to the forehead were not the solution. He needed to change tactics, and he used disguise. Heck hit the ground and was surprised that he disappeared. No, he still sensed his presence, so he used a skill to hide. He felt the attack at that very second and managed to put his bat under it so that it wouldn't hit him. Heck launched his attack and realized that it was even harder to sense him now. He could only sense his energy while he was attacking. If he had his usual bat, it would have been easier. As luck would have it, he left it with the old man. Heck thought This definitely won't do. He needs to get out of here. But the assassin came out and attacked from behind, asking where he was going. He attached a beacon, so now it's just a matter of time before he's caught. He's like a rat in a trap. The assassin said he ran away to such a crowded place on purpose. Clever. But he will inevitably be alone. And then it was the end for him. The assassin was ready to follow him to the last and kill him. The assassin followed him and realized that the signal stopped in this mall. He is close, and the only place in the area where he could be alone. And then it occurred to him that it could be a toilet. Once inside, he used his powers of camouflage and slipped straight through the wall into the toilet. This time he would definitely finish him off. Opening the toilet door, he saw that his chip was lying there. So here, a trap. And then Heck ran out and said with an attack that in such a tight space, disappearing wouldn't help him. But the assassin managed to dodge and attack, but the guy dodged it, and then grabbed him by the hand. Heck said if he didn't want his head smashed in, he should tell the truth. Why did he try to kill him? The boys put up a sign that work was underway. At that moment, the father and son came to the toilet and said that they were not allowed in there. Couldn't he wait? The boy replied that he couldn't. The father opened the door for him and told his son to do everything quickly. The boy said that he would be a bullet and let his father watch the door. But suddenly the boy saw Heck beating the guy with a bat and froze for several minutes. Heck was surprised and realized that he had put up a sign for such a case. He told the kid that it was dangerous here. The assassin saw this and realized that this was his chance, and immediately used his fire palm and attacked. Heck managed to dodge and told the boy to get out of here. The boy got scared and screamed that it was fire. The assassin attacked the guy with a firestorm, but Heck managed to see it and used his protective shield. Heck thought he was crazy. There was a child here, and he was attacking, and then the father ran in and shouted at the boy. The assassin managed to save his life, and the day turned out to be difficult. After all, the authorities said that he was not very strong, and now there's nothing to be done. The mission has failed. We must retreat and try again next time. Heck immediately caught up with him and asked where he was running. Did he think they would let him go just like that? And he stuck his bat into his back. Heck realized that he had gotten too angry and gone too far. Was this his first murder? Although it was self-defense, but still. But then the system said that because of the murder his karma increased. How disgusting. And the system informed him that he will not receive the title of villain for justified murder. And the cleric's skill was changed. And the guy also fulfilled the hidden condition for the second-class upgrade. Heck was surprised because he got the upgrade. Heck was sitting on a chair at the time and said that when a hunter kills someone, he gets the title of villain. And this blocks the cleric's skill. So he thought it was all over. But what if the class changed? And then people came up to him and asked, is his name Heck? The man said his name was Ken Yong from the Hunters section of the detective department and asked him to cooperate with them. Ken said that the guy was attacked by a hunter mage, and when he found himself in danger, he used a magic skill, right? Heck answered that it was true. There was a child nearby, but that didn't stop him from using fire magic. Is the child okay? Ken answered that he only had a minor burn and nothing serious. And then the guy said that the boy and his father asked him to convey their sincere gratitude. Heck said that it was not necessary. It was enough for him that he did not have any serious injuries. Ken said it was all thanks to his quick reaction, so there shouldn't be a problem with recognizing it as self-defense. Once the investigation is over, he can go home. Heck was surprised and asked, is it that simple? Ken replied that his feat is also taken into account, and the laws work differently for hunters, but in fact, there is another reason. He didn't get the title of villain, did he? Heck was surprised and asked how he knew. Ken replied that the title of villain only appears after a deliberate murder. And in the case of self-defense, it does not arise. That is why it is their secret. If he remains silent, he will avoid trial. But if he told anyone, they would have problems. Heck said he understood, and he promised not to tell anyone. Ken immediately took the object out of his pocket and said that, however, it was risky for them to rely on his words, so they should take precautions and hoped that he would understand. He handed him an object and asked him to carry it with him. It was a tracking device. If he said 3 forbidden words, they would receive a signal. The forbidden words are murder villain, and self-defense. If he doesn't talk about today's events and doesn't mention the forbidden words, there won't be any problems. They'll take care of the rest. And the guy had been through a lot today, so he better go home and get some rest. Heck said he understood and thanked him. Did the guy tell the boss that this is the hunter who is rumored to have caught a new type of monster? He doesn't look like a C-class hunter. Ken replied that he blocked the firestorm with almost no damage and protected the child. He also dealt with a fairly high-level hunter mage himself. So, it wasn't just a rumor. He must have power that far exceeds Class C. It's something special. But suddenly the system popped up and said that he had a judge class. Heck immediately thought that it was a hidden class. He was open to get it, but not like this. Instead of explanations, he simply tested it in practice. First, the treatment and bait of the loin were replaced by the skill hard skin. It reduces damage from attacks. And the status resistance skill, which increases resistance to poison, sleep, and paralysis. And now he understands why it's called transformation. The effects of his skills are still there, but they're more defense-oriented. He can no longer use Holy Aura, but he now has a skill, Fighting Spirit, that turns fighting will into aura. And instead of a Holy Shield, he has access to a defense charge, which allows him to attack and defend with the strength of a tank. Heck looked at himself and said that he would become a real tank. And now his combat skills have been confirmed. But there is also the skill of persuasion. It determines karma. And then, opening the camera, he saw that he could now see numbers above people's heads. I wonder, what good is that? The number above the head is Karsa, 64? Is it a lot or a little? Another skill related to the meaning of karma, judgment. In other words, he gets stronger when he fights bad guys. A skill that matches the hidden judge class. It pushes him to hunt bad guys. Heck came to Elf and said that he can now shoot lightning from the bat. Elf said that the lightning is rechargeable. It can be charged up to 3 times. One charge takes 30 minutes. Heck tried it and told his uncle it was amazing. But how to use it? The elf said that fortunately there was one kobold in the yard who had been caught trying to rob a workshop. And then the wolf ran out and Elf asked, why not test it on him? Heck asked how to shoot lightning. Do I need to say some kind of spell? The elf replied that who has time to cast spells during a fight? Just let him imagine the discharge. Heck thought about imagining it. He likes casting spells. It's so cool. And at that very second, he used lightning. With one blow, he destroyed the wolf. He immediately thought it was amazing. This would make future battles much easier. Lucia told Heck that if he was done checking everything, it was time to talk. She asked him what he was doing outside. He thought she wouldn't know. She no longer senses any divine power from him. And what is this suspicious object? Don't tell me he doesn't plan to do something weird with them? Heck replied that of course not. She got all wrong. He tried to tell them, but he couldn't. Lucia said that something changed his divine power to something else. The elf said that, and the reason why he can't explain everything about this item. So, I'll have to figure out this toy first and then talk. Heck was wondering if it was possible. The elf said that first he had to do one of his errands. Heck asked what it was. The elf replied that it was nothing special. Just let him do one simple task, and then he would spend his precious time sorting out that trinket. The elf handed him the item and said that he would need it to complete the task. Heck took it and was surprised because it was a compass. Lucia asked Elf, was he serious? Was he going to send him there? Elf replied that even a stupid newbie could handle it. And he volunteered, didn't he? Heck was surprised and asked, are they sending him to some dangerous place? But what kind of place is this? At this time, Heck began to lower himself down the cliff on a rope. He asked why they were mining or here. Lucia asked him what was scaring him. It was just a cliff. Nothing special. And then she started moving the rope. The guy was screaming at her to stop. Lucia told him to just follow her. Don't fall behind. She immediately rushed down. Heck said it was easy to say. He was heavier than her. Lucia asked, really? Maybe he was just scared? They didn't seem to be doing anything out of the ordinary. Heck thought about her words and decided that maybe it was so. But who cares? And he let go of the rope with his hands and threw himself into the cliff. Downstairs, Lucia told him that he had succeeded. She asked him if he had lost his holy power. Heck replied that it was true. That's why he brought this strange thing. Lucia asked if it could be taken off. The boy replied that usually not. But the old man said that everything was fine, so he probably had a way to help. He was a real master. You could trust him. Lucia replied that he was reliable in that regard. About measuring karma. That's why he looked at them so strangely. She asked what her karma level was. Heck replied, 82. The highest of the three. Lucia said she hadn't had an easy life, so it wasn't surprising. She had to survive. Heck said that the difference between them was only 20 points. Lucia replied that they didn't know yet whether 20 points was a lot or a little. In her world, saints sometimes appeared who were able to distinguish good from evil at a glance. Heck said he was far from a saint. Lucia asked who would say he was a saint. She simply said that such an ability exists in her world. In any case, now was not the time to look for the mine. They needed to fully understand his abilities. Heck asked why she was so interested in his abilities. Lucia replied, because he's interesting. They won't learn anything about the levels of karma just by sitting here. And they better get out of here. If he's afraid of being attacked, she'll protect him. Heck was thinking, what should he do? Old man, I'm sorry, but he wants to solve this issue. Heck said she was right. Let's get them out, and immediately took the home stone out of his pocket. Heck angrily and confidently smashed it, and said that first we need to solve this problem. And at that very second, a portal opened. Once in the city, Heck asked the girl if she was sure her disguise was working properly. Lucia turned into a beauty and answered that she was sure. She had them both. Let him not worry. Heck asked why they were staring at them then. Lucia replied that no matter what, she couldn't hide her beauty. Heck said that wasn't the case, although perhaps beauty played a role. Lucia told him to stop talking empty talk. They had better summarize what they had learned about the karma system. Heck replied that it seemed like karma accumulated when she did something that was considered bad. Breaking a promise to a dwarf increased his karma level. But if she harms someone and it is mutual, then the karma level remains the same. It is not entirely clear, of course, said Heck, what is considered a high or low level. But one thing is certain, if the karma level exceeds 200 units, she is considered a villain. Lucia asked why that was. Heck replied that killing someone with a karma level of 200 or higher does not result in punishment. It seems that killing such a person is considered self-defense. The girl asked, 200 is the limit, right? Even she and the old man don't have karma levels above 100, so it would be hard to find someone with a level above 200. Heck said she was right, and so far he has not seen anyone with a karma higher than 50 among people. And he told the girl to get up. They will explore another place. Heck said that it was a place where very bad people gathered. Lucia asked, do they really walk around here with lanterns at night? Aren't they afraid of attracting monsters? Heck replied that unlike his world, there were no monsters roaming around here. Lucia said that although the air here wasn't very good, Heck replied that every world has its pros and cons. But suddenly a guy met them and said that Lucia was a beauty. The guy said that their bar is currently running a special offer. Beautiful ladies are getting up to 5 free cocktails. Lucia immediately pushed him and told him to get out of the way. Heck stopped her and said it was free. Maybe they could have a drink. The boy was delighted and said that he would treat them generously. Let them follow him. Heck was immediately happy because he saw that he had found this scoundrel, and he had 300 points. Sitting at the bar, Lucia said that alcohol in this world is sweet. The guy was happy at that time because they had just drunk poison, a drop of which paralyzes the entire body. And then he gave a sign, and the guys said that they would now deal with the guy. Heck immediately replied that they should just try. He immediately used the skill status resistance, poison neutralization, and directly knocked one of them out. At this time, Lucia opened her eyes and said that she only wanted to pretend to be asleep, but in fact she dozed off. She turned around and asked who these guys were. Heck asked, what did she think? Just bad guys. The guy asked his men to do something, but one of the big guys told Heck that he had had his fun and that was enough, and he rushed to attack. Lucia asked him if he needed help. Heck confidently told her no, he could handle it himself. The guy called Heck a bastard and asked why he was ignoring him, but Heck stopped his blow with one hand. The guy immediately thought, what the hell? Why can't he move his hand? The guy asked him if he was a hunter. Heck replied that he looked like him too, but for some reason he was playing a bandit. The guy wondered what he was doing here. This was very bad. He needed to run. But Heck held his hand tightly and began to squeeze it slowly. With his other hand, he hit the guy on the head with all his might, so hard that the guy's face twisted. The manager was surprised and did not understand what was happening. Heck did not let him go and grab him by the throat. Heck said he had a lot of questions. The boy screamed at him to let go. Heck said he wouldn't let him go. Heck beat him half to death and said that it looked like it wasn't the first time he'd done something like that. Who was covering for him? Let him tell immediately. The boy slowly asked Heck what he meant. Heck called him trash and asked again why he was going unpunished and how did he manage to hire all these thugs. It's impossible without someone's support. This is his last chance. Let him talk. The boy replied that there was no one. He was telling the truth. Heck noted that he was denying it either out of extreme loyalty or because he feared his protectors more than beatings. Heck immediately took off his boot and figured he'd have to be a little tougher. The guy tried to resist and asked what he was doing. Heck asked the guy, what does he think? He's just helping him talk. The guy asked him, does he think this will make him talk? Heck replied that they would see soon. But then Lucia came up and asked the guy why he was making things difficult for himself. Let him step aside. She decided to use her magic. The guy got really scared and asked, what the hell is this? The guy asked, who are they anyway? Ultron, right? He's from Ultron. Whatever they do, it's too late. Heck said he didn't look well. What did she do to him? Lucia said she just helped him confess. She didn't expect him to talk like that. The guy said it doesn't matter who he is from Ultron or somewhere else. It doesn't matter anymore. The Titan Guild will kill everything. Heck thought about his words and decided that it meant that the Titan Guild was behind all of this. Heck said that was the case, but even if a war broke out, the forces were equal. What made him think that they would be able to win the massacre? The guy said it was the elixir of Auron. Heck was surprised and asked what it was. Climbing up, Lucia said that this was really serious. Heck replied that it was true. Who would have thought that they would encounter a large guild? Heck said that the elixir of Auron is a potion that doubles all stats. But to create it, countless young girls must be sacrificed. He didn't think the Titan Guild was making it. Lucia said it was surprising. She didn't expect there to be such crazy people here. Heck asked if the elixir existed in her world too. Lucia answered yes. They had something called the Queen's Tears. Her childhood friend was sacrificed to create this elixir. When she reached platinum rank, she got rid of that organization with her own hands. Heck said that's why she looked so depressed. Lucia asked what they would do. Heck replied that they said the elixir would be ready soon. They should be destroyed before that. At this time, in one salon in the city, a suspicious man called his boss and said that they had a problem. The boss asked, what is the problem? The stranger replied that Park Min-jae was dead. This did not seem to be an internal conflict, or the work of another guild. But it's strange that they killed only him and left immediately. Their people or other guilds wouldn't do that. The boss said that at any cost, let him find those who did this. The guy answered him that everything would be done. On the Titan Guild's business trip abroad, Lee told the group leader that the result of this trip in Hong Kong was exclusive. Lee said that if the performance continues like this in the first half, it could be good. And the idea is to recruit 15% more guild members. Lee asked the master that he didn't look well. Was there something wrong? Ho asked her if she had ever heard of Aluna's elixir. Lee replied that no. It was the first time she had heard of it. Ho replied that it was normal. The association was trying its best to hide it. And he's just asking out of curiosity, but it's hard for her to go back to Korea now, isn't it? Lee said it was hard because the request hadn't been completed yet. But what exactly was going on? Could she issue an urgent order for the guild to move out immediately? Lee was surprised and asked, urgent order? Ho replied that their Titan Guild was now declaring hostile relations with the Tyrant Guild. Lee was surprised and asked him what he meant. Ho replied that if they did not prepare now, they would fall into even greater chaos. Ho said that if the information was true, it would be too late when things started to happen. Lee asked him what information was so serious that he was making such dangerous decisions. Lee told the leader that he knew this better than anyone. This order was practically a declaration of war on the Tyrant Guild. Ho replied that he was aware. She shouldn't worry. The Ultron Guild and the government would be on their side. Lee said that even war comes with huge risks. Shouldn't they at least consult with their exes and make a more cautious decision? Ho asked her if she thought he was talking nonsense right now. Ho thought about it and saw that his expression indicated that he had already made up his mind. But he is usually so cautious, but he still came to such a decision. But still, no matter how he looks at it, this decision is too much. Ho said that he understood perfectly well that she was surprised. For now, let her announce it confidentially within the guild and to the preparatory investigators. But they will postpone the official announcement for the time being regarding the investigation. Lucia asked the boy if he had received a response from his confidant. Heck replied that he had. They would contact him again as soon as the investigation team was ready. Lucia said that at least there were still sane people. Heck replied that if no one agreed, he would handle it himself. And if they already know what a lawn is, such a reaction is expected. And by the way, is she going to come back? Lucia asked him if he thought she would go back to the dungeon and miss all the fun. Heck said that if they were crazy enough to do something like that, then they weren't ordinary people. Lucia asked him if he couldn't handle them on his own, right? Heck replied that it was true. Lucia said that then the guy should let her help, and she offered to destroy these bastards together. Hyuk thought about it and thanked her for her help. But suddenly someone knocked on the door and asked if Kong Hyuk was there. Lucia asked who it was, and Heck himself answered that he was not expecting anyone. But they said at the door that it was a delivery. Could they open the door? At this time, the guy looked at his sensor and said that the guy covered in Park Min-jae's blood was not far from here. He thought about it and found out that this house was just his imagination, or the house looked a little weird. Arriving at the house, he remembered and asked, "Isn't this the house of a hunter who caught a new kind of monster? But does that mean that this man, the one who attacked the stage?" But it doesn't matter anymore. He'll just catch him and ask, "How is he doing?" Heck went to the door and asked the stranger who he was. The guy behind the door replied that it was a delivery. Heck immediately thought and understood that it couldn't be possible for the delivery to be at such an hour. Besides, the house was still under a recognition suppression spell. And if someone got over it and came here and is now pretending to be a courier, something is wrong. The guy immediately attacked Heck with his darts. But Heck was stronger and managed to dodge. Heck said he knew it and asked if deliveries now came with poison darts as a bonus. The guy was very surprised at this moment and could not believe that this hunter blocked his attack. At this point, Lucia had already loaded her bow and shouted to Heck to move away from the target, and she released the arrow. The arrow hit the guy who attacked them straight on. She told Heck to step aside. She would finish him off herself. Heck said no. He'd handle it himself since he was here. It was because of what happened at the bar. Lucia told him to be careful. The fact that he was still moving after being hit by her arrow meant he wasn't just a guy. The guy watched them and thought, "Who is this woman?" And one arrow did this to him, and now he has to retreat. Heck followed him out and asked what was going on. Was he running away? Lucia asked what they were going to do, chase him. Heck told her to leave it. He would probably come later, and anyway, he was here. Heck said this guy's karma is over 900, which means he's the type to kill like nothing happened. Heck told the girl that it worked perfectly. He was wondering how to clean it up after that, and he could use this guy. The next morning, she and Lucia drove out of town, and suddenly the driver told them that they had arrived. And this was the place of the investigation. The driver said that even if the guild leader instructed, he asked them to bring them, let them be careful. And there are still many people in the Titan Guild, and who don't like him. You have to be careful. Heck immediately looked at them and saw that half of them seemed to be stuck at A-rank hunters and above, and they are an elite group. But suddenly Heck noticed one guy and wondered if this was the same guy who started the fight back then. Could he be the one running this operation? He immediately sighed and felt that he had a bad feeling that this would irritate him. Then the guy said his name was Han Yun-suk, and he was in charge of this operation. They had met during the last air strike, but he wasn't sure if the guy remembered him. Heck replied that, of course, he remembered everything. And today Sok was quite kind. not like last time. Sok coughed after these words and said that he was asking for forgiveness. And he got a little carried away, thinking about the guild's affairs. Sok told them to let him take this opportunity to apologize, and he hoped the operation would be a success. And suddenly Sok saw the girl and asked who she was. Heck replied that she was his colleague. She was experienced, so she wouldn't be a problem. Sok looked at his warriors and asked in surprise his colleague. This was not mentioned. And suddenly 2 mercenaries came down and said that the reconnaissance team had returned. Sok told the guys that he understood everything and asked for their forgiveness. He immediately thought, what can some C-class girl boast about? And the main thing is to achieve his goal. Lucia turned to Heck and said that this man seemed suspicious. What would they do? The guy replied that she shouldn't worry. Things wouldn't go as he thought. Lucia listened and told the guy that this guy had been following them for a long time. Hadn't Heck noticed? Why was he letting him follow them? Heck told the girl not to pay attention. He had a use for it, and let her take this item. Lucia asked what it was. Heck replied that it was a communication item. It allowed one to contact anyone within a 10-kilometer radius. And this will come in handy. Let her take care of this item. Sok came up to them and said that their report was true. It seems that the Tyrant Guild is indeed involved in human trafficking. Heck asked what they will do about it. Sok told the guy that he actually wanted to ask them for a favor. Heck asked in surprise, a favor? Sok replied that during their investigation, they discovered a powerful barrier around the building. If only one person could pass through it undetected. Juice told the guy that's it. Could he help them? Heck told him to just say it straight out, that he wanted him to risk his life. Sok said of course not. They just needed them to do some reconnaissance. He was very experienced. And the guy even caught that new monster, didn't he? And it would be easier for him to work alone than with members of their guild, with whom he had never worked before. Heck understood Sok from many angles, and that he didn't want to risk their lives. But they didn't know one thing. This was exactly the situation he was counting on. At the moment of the attack, the mercenaries told Heck to listen carefully. The plan is actually simple. They will create a hole in the barrier through which they can pass. And as soon as it opens, let the guy get inside. Heck replied that he understood everything. It was time to act. And suddenly they stopped abruptly, and the mercenary said that the hole would only be open for a few seconds, so he should hurry. The mercenaries suddenly opened a portal and told Heck to act now. The guy ran with confidence and decided to check what they were hiding there. Having passed through the portal, Heck was very surprised, and seeing the surroundings, he asked, "What is this?" After all, it looked different from the outside. Did they distort the appearance with the barrier? Heck started walking and said that he would look for the entrance for now. Heck suddenly crept up behind the wall and said that there was less security here than he expected. At that moment, he saw that there was a man on guard, and if they were guarding this place, then this was the entrance. And having attacked him, he understood that he had to deal with this guy. Heck swung with all his might, and at the last moment he missed. The boy asked, "What is this? Is this an illusion?" It was a bit awkward. He was going to use it to open this door. How was he going to get in now? Heck approached the door, and suddenly he saw that it opened. But why was everything so easy? Heck wondered, what kind of lack security is this? Apparently, there aren't even any surveillance cameras. Do they think that ordinary women can't escape? Heck thought about it and decided that he didn't know, but it was worth covering his bases just in case. A device for creating Amy, made from materials of an electric monster. Heck released it and said it would disable any communications or security system. His phone would be disabled too, but just in case. He left Lucia with a communication item. Heck released a powerful wave of energy that spread throughout the entire area. But at this time, a mercenary came to the territory and said that First Park Min Jae died, and now the secret cooperation with the Titan Guild has surfaced. And it seems like these guys are suspicious, but it's only to his advantage. Thanks to Kong Jin Hyuk, this matter can go easier. The guy who was in the invasion area was sitting on his phone, and suddenly his phone turned off. The guy thought it was strange and asked what was going on. This backwater was really annoying him. Turning around, he saw only a bright light, which scared him. But Heck immediately released his bat and broke his jaw. Heck finished this guy off, and it looks like this guard with 800 karma was. This place is a real trash heap. but you can shoot without hesitation. Heck began to look around the area and said that this seemed to be a prison where they kept kidnapped women. But suddenly he saw women's legs and said that this was too much. Do they really consider people fertilizer? But suddenly some stranger asked him who he was. Heck immediately understood from the voice that it was not a woman. Looking into the camera, the guys said that they didn't know him. Let him go before it was too late. Everyone here, they had all clearly gone crazy. Heck immediately thought, could this person really be from the Tyrant Guild? Sun looked at his watch and said that quite a while had passed, and it was still quiet. It seemed that he had successfully penetrated there, inside, and now they will be waiting nearby to intervene immediately if something goes wrong. He immediately pointed his finger at the territory, and the mercenaries immediately went into hell. Sun looked at the girl and also went to get his people. Lucia looked and thought, is it really time to act? But then she remembered how Heck told her that he could handle the building himself, and she should keep a close eye on the Titan guys. And this juice can do something unexpected, but let her not get involved in the fight. But Lucia said that she was tired of it and went after them. Hyuk asked the guy that his name was Young Dae-yoon. It seems he is from the Tyrant Guild. But why is he in such a state? Yin replied that he was simply trying to destroy Alron. Heck asked in surprise, what? And they left him alive? Yin replied that it was probably because of his ability. He can create illusions. Heck immediately realized that this was the guy's doing. The guy told him that he understood everything and asked why he wanted to destroy Alron. Yin replied that he couldn't continue watching them feed the monsters with people. So he went for it. But he got caught. It didn't work out. Heck thought it was amazing. Such a person in Tyrant, still with a low karma score. Hyuk told Yin that he thought the guy would help him. Yin was surprised and asked, would he help? At this time in the monetary room, the guy suddenly fell asleep, and when he opened his eyes, he was surprised that no one caught him. The guy started saying that he felt sleepy every time at this time. But when he looked at the monitors, he was surprised and asked, what is this? The guy started looking at all the electrics and said that the entire computer system was off, and he ran to solve this problem. The guy ran into the break room and screamed that they had an emergency. The system was down. The guard were surprised and asked what? The guy answered that all the women had disappeared. It looked like someone had broken in. The commander ordered Group 1 to go to Alron's laboratory, and Group 2 to go with him to catch the criminal and the women, and order the guy to contact the main group by any means necessary. Did they understand everything? Yun released every single one of them and said that there was just a little bit left. They were almost there, but the guard found them and told the team to come here. The women run to the exit. The guard told Yin that he had punished him before, right? He doesn't know how he got out, but this time he will finish him off. But everyone pounced on him, but suddenly they saw before their eyes a bat that laid them all out. Heck didn't play around with them and destroyed every single one of them. He said that judging by how desperately they were defending this place, it looked like the Alron were here. Opening the door in front of him, Heck realized that this was the very place. The guys from Tyrant hid such a large structure underground. Heck started looking around and realized that these were all kidnapped people. And seeing this in real life is even more disgusting. But that must be Alron, the source of all chaos. Heck picked up his bat and realized that it did not respond to the sleep. Then that was great. Heck decided to destroy everything here and get rid of him forever. But suddenly 2 human wires attacked him. Heck was surprised at the moment because he was moving, and they were very fast. But what could it be? Could these really be tentacles? Heck saw that these were heavy attacks. One missed blow and he would be finished. And now he had to wait for the moment to attack. Heck kept telling him to stay calm. If he could handle the tentacles, this beast suddenly broke out of the vessel and attacked the guy, in the hope of destroying him. Having launched his tentacles into battle, Heck immediately realized that he seemed to be in shit, and now he needed to act more carefully. Heck suddenly activated the impenetrable armor skill and began to dodge all of her attacks. Heck realized right away that it was entirely possible to dodge, and if he thought about it, he needed to put an end to this. At the moment of the attack, Heck did not have time to dodge, and the enemy launched a powerful attack and hit the body. Heck stood up abruptly and said that it was powerful. It was certainly risky, and it almost broke through his defense despite the chainmail. Heck said that it wasn't that easy to eliminate him. Did she understand him? And now they will find out who is more powerful. Heck started to act seriously, and in a moment he dodged all of her attacks and even repelled the attack. At that moment, Heck got very close to her, and even his eyes began to sparkle. Heck used his powerful attack and pierced the monster's chest with his bat. Heck got serious and shoved the bat even deeper and told it to disappear. Heck's energy increased several times, and the energy passed through the cannibal's body and exploded. Heck came to his senses and said that he barely made it, but he saw some strange object in front of him. Heck asked what it was. The magic stone of Auron? He picked it up and said he felt nothing. From its size and shape, it was clearly a magic stone. Heck put it in his collection and decided that he would ask Uncle Gnome about it later. Heck picked up his sensor and decided he was done here. Maybe he could find out what was going on outside. Heck pressed the sensor and asked Lucia if she could hear him well. How was her situation? Had the girls escaped successfully? Lucia replied that a man and several women went down the mountain, but they were followed by people in similar clothes. What was going on? Heck replied that it was Tyrant. It seemed that he could be trusted, so they decided to act together. He was an ally. She could rest assured. Lucia said she understood everything. And did he deal with Auron? She asked. Heck said of course. He did a great job, and he took the stone. Heck asked her what she would say about those who remained. Lucia replied that they had been fighting recently. As soon as the guys in white came out, the guys from Titan rushed at them. But strangely, those in white ate something and changed. And the Titan guys started to give up. Heck said that meant they ate something. Maybe that same Auron elixir? Their abilities have increased, but they have lost their minds and gone mad. And this time, Titan can't handle them. Heck said it would be a shame if the Titan guild collapsed. Maybe she could help them? Although we won't get any culture from the Titan guys, it's important to stop the people from Tyrant right now. Lucia replied that it was fine. Is it enough to only aim at those in white? She asked. Lucia told the boy to trust her, and in return, when they were done, he would cook a lot of sweets. Heck said that was very good. They had sorted out those as well. And suddenly, he told someone to stop hiding. The guy from delivery. The mercenary suddenly came out of the corner and told the guy that he was surprised. He didn't expect him to reveal his presence. Heck said that he was his target. Or was he hunting for Auron? The mercenary took off his hood and said that he had a common target with him. But it had changed, and immediately rushed to attack. Heck accepted this without fear and told him not to regret this decision. After all, he would not be able to leave alive. The mercenary immediately pulled out his knife and tried to finish the guy off with one blow. But Heck easily dodged it. Heck hit him with his elbow, and the mercenary didn't have time to dodge and flew several meters away. The mercenary was immediately surprised, because such a reaction speed is impossible for an ordinary C-rank hunter. Could it be that the poisonous dart he blocked last time was not just luck? But in the end, he's still just a C-rank hunter. But Heck was stronger and kicked him in the head. Heck threw his bat right at him, but he missed and hit the wall. And on his next attack, he used the automatic return. The mercenary managed to dodge the attack, and, choosing the right moment, hoped that it would kill him. But suddenly attacking from behind, Heck managed to dodge with ease. The mercenary was very surprised and saw that this guy was wearing armor. The mercenary decided to attack again, but Heck took away the shining knife, pulling his head back so that it would miss. Heck began to unleash his strongest attacks and asked the mercenary where he wanted to run. Heck used his electric attack on his bat and said that he wouldn't be able to escape this time. The mercenary immediately realized that his affairs were very bad and could not dodge, so he used his shield. The mercenary managed to resist and said with surprise that he was barely able to block it. Looking around, the mercenary saw only fog and wondered where Heck could have gone. But Heck used this to his advantage and moved in to attack with his bat and stabbed it into the mercenary's chest. The mercenary told the boy that it was pointless. There was no way the boy was that strong. Heck replied that he was not as weak as he thought. The mercenary replied that this could not be. Heck said no, there won't be a next time for him, and this place will be his grave forever. After the invasion, the mercenaries said that all the bodies were removed and burned to the ground. The mercenary told his men to take care of the wounded, and he would go and report everything. At this time, Sak was bandaging his hand and thought that the tyrants, who would have thought that they were hiding drugs, if this woman hadn't helped them, they would have died. These arrows, their power was almost at the S rank level. Sak wondered at that moment, had a female hunter ever been so strong? And then a mercenary came and told the chief that he was reporting the situation. The wounded were taken to the hospital, and all possible evidence was processed. Juice told the mercenary that a good job had been done, and now that they had dealt with the tyrants, he suggested that they go inside and finish the party properly. But suddenly someone shouted at them to wait a minute. Sak was surprised and asked the guy if he hadn't betrayed the tyrants. Yin gasped and replied that he had a message to convey. The tyrant guild leader and their main force were already on their way here. Suk asked in surprise, "Guild leader Cho One Coal of the tyrants will come here?" Yin answered that it was true. Suk immediately thought that if the C-rank hunter Cho One Chol was coming here, then they had no chance. And would they really have to go back to the past when they were simply obliged to defeat them? But suddenly the mercenary asked his men what was going on. The mercenary replied that they saw the tyrant guild hunters approaching. There were about 4 to 5 of them. Perhaps they were vanguard. The mercenary said that it seemed like what the guy was saying was true. What should they do now? Juice thought he knew in his head that they had no choice. He said the operation ends here. Everyone retreat. The mercenary immediately ordered his men to quickly evacuate this place. Sak asked the boy if he would go with him. Yin said no. He would stay and come up with an alibi. If he disappears too, it will look suspicious. He will stay and file a false report, making it look like someone else did it. They must avoid a war between the Titan and Tyrant guilds. After all, Sak agreed and replied that they would do it this way, and they'll attach it all. And Hunter Kong, Jin Hyuk inside. That would be the most natural expression, wouldn't it?